give us the very latest on what you're hearing on James Harden. Is this basically a no-brainer that this guy is going to opt out?
Yeah, I think the Sixers have an interest in bringing him back. I think that's definitely going to be something that's at the top of their list going into Friday evening. They have been working hard in recent weeks to make sure that James Harden is going to be in the fold for next season. Now, there's only a couple of teams out there, guys, that have salary cap space. The only one that makes sense for Harden is the Houston Rockets, which we've known for months. And the Rockets are out there, from what I am told, very aggressively chasing other free agents. They are not acting as if they think they're getting James Harden. To me, the question is going to be, if James Harden does indeed stay in Philadelphia, what's the contract? He's very likely going to opt out of his deal because he can get up to, I think, a $13 million raise. He took a pay cut last year. He's in position to get that money back this year. What kind of terms are the Sixers willing to offer him? He's eligible for a 4-year contract, but he is 33. I don't know if the Sixers can go there. Does he accept something shorter? Would there be some sort of partial guarantee? I think these have been the center part of the discussions in recent weeks, not necessarily where James Harden is going to be. I would never guarantee anything in the modern NBA, but I would be surprised if Harden wasn't a Sixer and locked in, in the first few days of free agency this weekend. I don't think just because he opts out of it, which I would expect him to do, it means that he's leaving. He took a significant pay cut last year to help the Sixers build up that roster. They did. They signed P.J. Tucker. They traded for DeAnthony Melton. And so he, frankly, is kind of in a little bit of debit based on his production. So I expect the Sixers' offer to be considerably higher on whatever number of years it is. So the indications are that James Harden is going to remain in Philadelphia. I would not say for sure it's a done deal, but those are the indications. And really it will come down to what sort of contract they negotiate. He could get up to 4 years. I'm sure Philadelphia, with a 33-year-old, would like it shorter, and that's part of the negotiation I think the Sixers have been working on in recent weeks.
4 years, that seems like an awful long time. And I'm almost scratching my head saying that about James Harden, but when you look at the performances in the playoffs, you got to say that. I don't know about 4 years. If he does stay, what does that mean for the Sixers? What does that mean for Joel Embiid?
Yeah, the problem is with Harden is it's almost similar to Anthony Davis in the fact that he's such a variable. Right, Legs? Like, is that, like you said, he'll give you that unbelievable game 1 or a game 4, and you see just how great he can be, and then you get game 6 and game 7. You see the inability
when you really need him
going when it matters most, and that's been the track record of his entire career. Let's be honest. So for the Sixers, what does it mean? It means you're running back pretty much the same roster. We'll see what happens with Tobias Harris, but all you did was change the head coach. So do you change philosophy? Does that change things? Or when all is said and done, all that matters for the Sixers is not what happens during the regular season. They can win 50 games. They can even win the division. They could be number 1 in the East. None of it will matter for Sixers fans. What matters is what happens from April forward. That's been their biggest problem. And if they can't get over the hump once again, does Joel Embiid start wondering, can I win here?
Yeah, and I think the coaching change is massive here for potentially Harden and Maxey and even Joel Embiid because, look, Doc Rivers is not going to take all the blame for what happened. But I think if you're Nick Nurse and you come in, the conversations you're having with Joel Embiid is about how to, finish games off. How do you play more to your strength in the paint late in games rather than tend to drift out toward the perimeter for long stretches? If you're James Harden, do you have a conversation with him saying, look, I think going forward, our best option is to preserve you as much as we can. Give Tyrese Maxey more control of the offense. If you're having a conversation with Maxey, it's talking about not living in the shadows and having games where you don't take a shot by the time you check out of the game 9 minutes in because you haven't touched it yet. You haven't gotten involved. You've got to get out of the shadows of James Harden more often on more nights. And I think if those conversations can be had and they buy in to what Nick Nurse is planning on doing, because you're not talking about a complete revamp of everything they're doing. They're close. They're in the mix. They lost a game 7 in round 2. You're talking about that last 10%. Yep. How do we squeeze that out? And if Nick Nurse can convince these guys he's the right guy to do it, then maybe James Harden sees this as the place he wants to be for the next 3 or 4 years and see this thing through and finish it off. And if you're the Sixers, then you buy into a 4-year deal.
Another storyline that Philly has to deal with is the future of their forward, Tobias Harris, who weighed in on the trade speculation surrounding him.
Casual Sixers fans, they'll trade me for a crumble cookie. But at the end of the day, they have to realize, you're not getting a 6'9" forward back who can, damn near shoot 40% from 3. guard other team's best player, shoot, post up, drive, play 70+ games a year.
Okay, it is important to point out Harris does own some crumble cookie franchises there, as he mentioned there. Wendy, give me your reaction to this.
Well, I thought, regardless of the nice little marketing there that he was doing, I thought Tobias was 100% on the money with what he said here. Last year, as Harden was leading the league or one at the top of the league in assists, and Embiid was leading the league in scoring, Tobias Harris had his lowest usage rate of his career. Lower, Brian, than he had in his rookie year back in 2011-12 with the Bucks. And then in the playoffs, it went down even more. Now, where I will say this about Tobias Harris is he was the highest paid player on the Sixers last year, and he's going to make $39 million this year. That is good money for a guy, even if he has been maybe unfairly reduced to a role player. There is some concept out there that the 76ers could trade Tobias Harris, but I don't know, like he said, what trade exists where they can get equal value of what he brings. I think he is a valuable player. Just with the way they use him, he's a little bit undervalued based on what his capabilities are. But I gotta say, I'm right with him with everything he said in that interview.
Listen, I think all Philly fans, all they're saying is $39 million, 15-7 in the postseason. It just doesn't match up. All right, welcome back. Time for what happens if Legs. What happens if James Harden leaves Philly?
I think we're going with Draymond Green first, actually. It looks like that's what the video says to me. It's what if he stays in Golden State, they're still a contender. I think this is a team, as long as Steph Curry has not had any decline, and to me, it doesn't look like it, that team is going to be in the mix, but it is critical you re-sign Draymond Green. He's the guy that's going to stir the entire thing.
All right, Alan Honda, what happens if the Lakers keep their current roster?
I think they'll be easily a top 4 team in the West. This is about continuity for a team that was put together right around the trade deadline. And after they made the moves they made to reshape that roster, they were one of the top defensive teams in the league. And then they went on a run that got them to the Western Conference Finals. If they don't change anything, they are just as good as they were, if not better, because they'll have a healthy LeBron James and a group that has now been together.
Okay, Legs. So now what happens if James Harden leaves Philly?
We find out if Tyrese Maxey's a true star. Because right now, there are nights that he plays like that, but there are nights he's in the shadow of James Harden. Look, your short-term prospects of contending definitely probably take a hit if James Harden leaves. But short-term, if Tyrese Maxey is the real deal that a lot of people think he can be, which is turned into a perennial all-star, potentially all-league player, you still have a chance in the East.
All right, Dominique is here with us. Now, listen, I know you've been listening to us talk all morning long about James Harden. Give me your thoughts on his contract situation.
Pay him. I mean, you could ask me just about any player. My answer is going to be pay him because I'm a player-first guy, and James Harden's been playing under market value for his entire career because of the max salary situation. But also last year he took a pay cut. So, I understand the point that James Harden has not proven that he's big-time player in the most important situations. But I think the two things can coexist. They can push Tyrese Maxey up in the pecking order and ask James Harden to be less of a kind of go-to playmaker, because it's impossible to argue that he didn't come up short in that Celtics series last year. He had those 2 40-point games that were incredible, but then he had a game where he made 3 buckets and 2 games where he made 4 buckets. To me, that suggests that maybe he needs to take a step back, but it doesn't matter when it comes to the contracts. At least in basketball, it feels to me like when it's time to pay a guy, you have to pay him. And what his role is on the team, you can figure that out.
You're basically saying pay him more to do less?
Yep. I like that deal. Do you like that deal?
Which is a great deal.
Do you like that deal?
Work less, get paid more. Yeah. I understand that for everybody. You love that. But from a franchise perspective, I think Doc tried to get him to be more of a playmaker, and he didn't like doing it. He likes being the guy we saw in Houston. High usage, I score first, and I'll take care of everybody else off of what I'm doing. And the question is he still that guy in the NBA?
Man, you kind of forget where James Harden got his start. He was a sixth man. He got his start with OKC. He was a sixth man.
And won it out.
Yeah.
And won it out because he wanted more.
But it's all full circle. When you're young, you need a lot of help. Then you get old and you need a lot of help. That's just the way that it happens. He is now cycling back into that portion of his career, whether he knows it or not. You can pay him a lot to do that, in part because he took a pay cut to help you out last year.
Do you think he'll accept that kind of role?
Look, I don't know how much he'll step back, but I think he has to understand the reality of it is there has to be a little bit more control given to Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
If you want to max out this group and actually win a championship and contend with teams like Milwaukee, Boston, and Miami in the Eastern Conference, I think James Harden's smart enough to understand that. I agree. You have to make the offer to him, a legitimate offer to try to get him to stay because you are in the mix. You are close. He's still a great regular season player. He has spotty great nights in the postseason. I guess every year you kind of keep your fingers crossed that hopefully it's not tonight when he shows up and has one of those nights when it's 2-2 and it's game 5 or like whatever it may be, like those pivotal games in series when he has not played well. You just hope that that's the case. Here's a problem. You can't just let a guy like that just leave.
Yeah.
Because of what you gave up to get him. You gave up assets to get him. And I know you can say what Ben Simmons turned into, that's fine. You still gave up Seth Curry. You gave up Andre Drummond. You gave up draft picks. You gave up capital to get this guy. You're going to have to make the offer to him. And I would be shocked, honestly, if he's anywhere other than Philly.
So you can make an offer to him, but is he worth the max? When you say game 6, game 7, when I needed you most, you don't deliver for me.
Well, it's not coming out of my pocket. And the fact of the matter is you pay one big number to all the players that you pay. How you allocate it is irrelevant. You want to create a championship roster. Like, again, in football, you often see teams that are most successful are quarterbacks on rookie contracts. They're getting paid a lot less than they deserve, which means there are other people on the roster that are probably getting paid more than their contribution value. If that happens to be the case here, no one gives a damn if you're holding up the trophy at the end of the season. So I'm not going to count James Harden's money. Good for him. Make it. He's going to reinvest it in the community anyway.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.